Hello, everybody. Welcome to the KyoAni Podcast, the podcast where we just talk about KyoAni. And this time, we're covering the 2018 show, Violet Evergarden, the Netflix exclusive as well. And it's a story. It's a pretty sad story at times, but it's a story about a girl who lost her arms. Now she becomes the Full Metal Alchemist. So I should introduce my co-host for this show, MaliceInWonderland.
Hello, and I hope you meant Full Metal Typewriter.
Same difference. And Shadow Blazer 12 million.
12 million?
You've been upgraded.
Wow. Hi, everybody.
So yeah, we're talking about Violet Evergarden, and I guess to introduce the series, it's set in this alt history post-war kind of thing, kind of like a World War I thing, and it follows Violet Evergarden, our titular character, as she tries to find the meaning behind the words "I love you," after her commanding officer, Major Gilbert, tells her these words like moments before he sacrifices his life to save her. And before this, she was originally an orphan, and she was actually taken in by the military to help with the war efforts and act as essentially a child soldier, only meant to be used as a highly effective and dangerous killing machine, while commanded by Major Gilbert.
Basically, imagine a cute anime waifu Terminator.
Yeah, pretty much. And Gilbert kind of takes a liking to Violet and wants to shelter her as much as he can from all these terrible war atrocities, while still giving her the orders to kill a bunch of people, basically. And he even, at one point, gives her the name Violet, and of course she gets the Evergarden surname later, after the war. So, when did you guys first watch Violet Evergarden?
I watched it when it was airing, but then the case of I'm gonna binge it when it's all out, and I forgot about it.
It happens. Shadow, what about you?
I did watch it while it was airing. I followed it week to week. First through the seedier side of the market. Then once it hit Netflix, I finished it out on Netflix, and then I rewatched the whole show again in preparation for this podcast.
Pretty much the same as Shadows for
same.
me as well.
I watched the whole thing today.
Oh well. I pretty
watched the second half of it today.
pretty much the same thing for me as Shadow, though. I originally watched the whole thing in Japanese on the more shady side of the internet. And then I watched the dub on Netflix as soon as it was all released on there. And so I've watched it twice at that point. And at this point I've just finished it a day or so ago, and yeah. It's my third time watching it. I watched it again in the dub. So I guess with that being said, this is kind of like, I think this is this the last anime they came out with, or was Surane the last one?
I think Surane was.
Surane.
So this is one of their last anime. This is also like right after A Silent Voice. So what did you guys think about the look of it? How did it compare?
Almost made to look like if it was a theatrical film and not just another television show.
Yeah, to me, Silent Voice visuals were pretty, but a bit too flat for me.
I don't know if I agree with that, but to me, Violet, I liked the way Violet looked. There was just some things about the lighting that kind of looked strange to me.
Wasn't the Netflix version changed?
The Netflix version, by the way, I think it's important to note, the Netflix version looks like utter crap. It's like really bad. The brightness it's really bright. Like they just turned the gamma up on it, and there's like these small black bars on each side. And as well, it's like half the bitrate is so low on it.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I'm viewing it through that lens because I rewatched it on Netflix. But these are complaints that I've had pretty much since the beginning. Is that some of the lighting just looks very unnatural or overblown? Maybe a better look.
I think a lot of
Oversaturated.
KyoAni shows have a really high exposure when they are lit.
Yeah.
I mean, I think of all the way back even to at least since the days of doing the key visual arts works and Taharu Suzumiya. Those shows were very really high on the exposure side.
Well, this one is like it's just the brights are really bright, and then the blacks are really black. It's really
Yeah.
crushed.
Well, I
And
think
to
that's
me, it's not a design or an artistic choice. It just seems like they just kind of made it, and then they just made it really bright on Netflix. And
Mm-hmm.
so.
that
You think Netflix just kind of jacked the contrast up because they're like, this looks too dark.
to me, it's I think they got like the TV broadcast version from Japan because
Probably.
if you
Yeah.
watch it, it has like all the Japanese text on it, and if you watch it dub, it's still the same. Like it's obvious that there was no work put into this Netflix broadcast version, and it's been sitting on there for a couple of years. So
And it's such a shame.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it's like on the places outside of Netflix, but yeah, it is not a very fun anime to watch if you're used to watching KyoAni stuff literally on any other site, because like it just looks way better on any other site but Netflix. And
Mhm.
like I have some like screenshots that I took of Violet through like my phone, of course, but uh and like there's just like it's just super low bit rate at times. Like the movement is really hard to see. Sometimes there's just jaggies around the characters, and
Yeah.
like what is this? This is a PS1 game. This is PS1 fidelity. Like what's going on here? And
And
it's not anything to do with my internet. It's just the way it's always been.
yeah, and it's such a shame because you can see the insane amount of work the animators did on this show.
Yeah, it's really pretty.
The only things that I don't like about, I guess moving on a little bit to the animation itself. The only things I didn't like about the animation, honestly, were some, like, I remember this scene in particular where they're, like, Iris, Violet, and Erica, at the, like, maybe episode 1, episode 2, are walking down the stairs, maybe episode 4, actually. And, like, their hair is just, like, flopping everywhere. I'm like, that just doesn't look good. It just it didn't look natural. And, of course, the last episode is all the action stuff. I do not like the way they animated the action. It's super floaty, very Naruto runny. Didn't enjoy it, to be honest. But what did you guys think about that? You guys have more of fresh minds on that stuff.
I
The
mean,
act-
it's not okay.
Go ahead.
Shut up. Okay, it's not that often that you see KyoAni doing an action or like combat action in their shows. Last one was what? Kyokai no Kanata? Beyond the Boundary, I
Yeah,
believe.
They also had like a little scene in Dragon Maid as well.
Yeah.
which were like
The-
magic and supernatural.
Which looked amazing, by the way. That was a great moment.
So, yeah, I think that's one thing that KyoAni could improve on. And will they? Need they? That's a question.
I don't think
I
they'll
will
need
leave
to.
hanging in the air.
But I think if they're going to do a show like Violet again, I think they'll have to, because it just there is no like weight in the combat like at all. Like in the flashbacks with when Violet's fighting a bunch of these soldiers, she's just super floaty. She's like it's like she's hovering in the air, slow motion, while everybody around her is at like normal speed, and it just looks kind of jarring and it looks weird, and it visually speaking it looks amazing because it's KyoAni visuals. It's just
Mm-hmm.
it's to me it just looked like they don't do a lot of action shows. So
Yeah. It was really well animated, but the combat choreography sucked, basically.
Yeah, really any of the combat where Violet's like, super soldier Violet Evergarden kind of took me out of the show. It's the thing I didn't like about the last 2 episodes is when it suddenly turns into an action show.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it turns into that Steven Seagal movie where he's on a train.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it even has one of those cheesy plots, like, oh, they go across the bridge, and there's 2 bombs, and like Benedict Blue's like running faster than the train, and jumps and kicks
Because
the
the
bomb.
train was barely
Yeah.
moving.
Oh, it was.
Benedict kicks the bomb off the bridge and then
And
the
Violet breaks both her arms.
off to get the bomb off.
Yeah. Also, speaking of Benedict, why the hell is he wearing heels?
It's just super stylish. Which there's a great funny scene with. I wish there was more Benedict Blue. I love Benedict Blue,
He was fun.
but he like hurt his foot, and Catalia was like, "Why do you wear these shoes?" And he's like, "I like them. I don't know." And then she like puts his hand on the sore, and he's like, "Ow, ow!" And it's just like it was just an out of nowhere scene, but it was hilarious, which is something that's awesome about Violet Evergarden. There's a lot of great like subtle comedy in it.
Very subtle.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very subtle, especially dealing with Violet. Like Violet has some sick burns.
No, that was in one of the earlier episodes. I think like 6 or 5.
Well, she's like talking to Iris at one point, and I forget she makes like a joke at like the end of the Iris episode that I thought was hilarious. And it's like,
Yeah, episode 4.
yeah, it's super subtle.
I think there were times where there was jarring disparity between when Violet was standing on there and some random single episode character was standing next to her. The quality in between those two was jarring sometimes, especially when there were close-ups.
Why don't we comment about the art direction of the show? All the scenery, all the background art. What do you guys think of it?
I liked it. It wasn't over stylized or extremely like stylistic, but it was solid, higher, medium. I have seen prettier backgrounds,
Mhm.
but there weren't not many.
I like them. I like mostly when they're a city or when they're in Photo Memory Doll's workplace. Lighting's really good in those areas, and it looks very like lived in, very old, kind of rustic aesthetic feeling to it. But I like the setting in particular really well. I think that one of the great things about this series is the setting.
Yeah, early 19th century with a bit of steampunk. I like that.
Yeah.
What else did you guys like about the art?
Well, I also agree. I really like the setting where it's kind of like this sort of pseudo historical piece where everything looks kind of like early 20th century, kind of that mix of European and a little bit of other countries, I guess, too, with the architecture and the costume design.
Yeah.
I think.
Carry on.
Well, I think it's just pretty cool that we're exploring a setting that's very similar to that World War, like the Great War kind of aesthetic.
Yeah.
And it's interesting as well, just from a Kyoto Animation perspective, that they're tackling a post Great War kind of story. Something you don't see much out of KyoAni.
Yeah, I hope they will kind of try to go more into historical shows. I would personally like to see them way more than sports show number 5.
They were supposed to be doing like an actual historical drama, like Japan in the early 20th century at some point. Like,
Oh, that could be interesting.
think it's like either late Meiji or early Taisho period. This was
Mhm.
before the fire though, so it's kind of in the air right now.
We'll see. Hopefully something like that will happen.
So what did you guys think about Violet herself? Starting from episode 1. I guess your first impressions of her.
My first impressions was okay. She's like a lot of the other sort of stoic, robotic, and traumatized characters I've seen in a lot of shows like this. Not
Mhm.
necessarily a bad way, because I get because they establish her motives are pretty clear on. She's somebody who is trying to understand the dying words of her major and trying to understand this strange, vague concept that we call love.
What do you think,
Or
Malice?
yes, more or less what Shadow said, except I think she's not trying to just understand love, but emotions in general, that is self. And she's just lost at the start.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's more of like a thing where she's trying to figure out the emotions of what I love you means. She knows what what it means. Like, she's not illiterate or anything. She knows. She's just trying to understand it for herself. And I think what makes her character work is that with every episode she has these journeys and these meets these people who have different perspective on different things and different experiences, and she has her own experiences with these people. And I think for her, the destination is extremely important for her, but I think as well, I think the journey is just as important as the destination. I think the connections she makes and the people she meets and the experiences she has lets her grow as a person to be able to be fully in touch with her emotions and feelings.
Yeah, without a doubt. That's kind of what like Malice said about her not only finding love but finding emotion too. And to me, that's more the thing that comes with the journey here. Because at first, all she knows is she needs to understand what is love. Why did the major tell me this? What does it mean? And her work as an auto memoirs doll is what gives her the understanding of emotions, which eventually leads her to the answer of understanding love.
Yeah, and primarily throughout the series, she's rather uh emotionless, but I don't think that's the right way to describe her. She's not
She's
very
like
in
a doll.
tune. Well, yeah, well, that's a good way to put it. Is she's like a doll in many senses. She's a doll in the sense that she looks like one. She has prosthetic arms, and her voice is extremely monotone.
Mhm.
But I also think that with Violet, it's she's trying to like her emotions are very, I don't want to say like of a child, but like very she's very she has emotions, she has expressions. She just doesn't know how to express them like me and you would express them. She's
Mhm.
very like a like a primitive kind of person. She just she's also very frank and very real with her feelings. She's probably the most like honest person in this whole anime.
Yeah, I'd say
Yeah,
that's
I
about
can. She starts breaking off that mask of her somewhere in the middle of the series.
Yeah,
I think
pretty
it was the
much
episode.
it's around episode 8 or 9 when she starts to you see her start expressing emotions more like a normal person. There are definitely hints starting around like 5 or 6 though.
Yeah.
And
I would carry on.
well, yeah, for sure. It kind of comes to that climax of hers when when she really realizes the major is dead.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
that's when you see her cry for like one of the first times in the show. And then from there, it's pretty much she's like an open book. She starts to like at the end of episode 10, she talks about how being at this house where the mother was writing letters for like every birthday for her daughter because she's going to pass away soon. She was talking about how it was really hard to be at that house and not cry, which is, and when she said that, I was like, that's like a pretty cool moment because we saw her cry before, of course, but like that's like at that point we kind of get with that scene that she's now able to express sadness and express her emotions more visibly.
That episode almost killed me. It was so sad.
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
second watch through, I cried a lot harder this time.
I didn't cry this time because I don't know. I guess I'm
I
just a
did.
heartless bastard. But when I first,
The
the first two times I watched this series, I cried through both, and I cried at an episode before 10 as well at some point. I don't remember what episode it was.
7 for me.
7 or 8, I think. Yeah.
7 was the theater playwright.
Oh yeah, the playwright and his daughter.
Yep.
Yeah. I had a chipped tooth, and I was like, "What is up with your chipped tooth? Get out of here, kid!"
God, see, come on.
Yeah, and
then she got cancer or something, and
yeah, I think 2 people in this series died from some type of cancer-like thing. Very sad.
Yeah.
It's like we're gonna kill the kid, and then we're gonna kill the mother, and you're gonna cry. That's pretty much what they did.
Sarcastic
Yeah.
bastards. They knew what they were doing.
Yeah. Yeah, and that episode, yeah, with the father who lost his wife and daughter, who I assume whatever they had. That was a very depressing episode in a different way. That was just seeing a person who is broken and had like every good thing taken away from him, and you see at the end he kind of like comes to peace with a lot of it.
Yeah.
Maybe he's still bitter after it. We don't know for sure, but that's what's cool about that episode is that at the beginning you see he goes into his house and he's like an alcoholic, and she starts hiding all the alcohol from him, which is rather humorous but very sad at the same time.
Yeah.
And by the end, she glides across water, which is a scene. I don't know what you guys think about that. We'll talk about that in just a second. But
physically impossible, but really pretty.
And at the end, he kind of breaks down, kind of lets it all out, lets it go. And I think that's one of the most satisfying episodes. Besides like 10, 7 and 10 are probably, I'd say, the best episodes in this show. But
yeah, I can get behind it.
What did you guys think about that scene in episode 7? The one everybody loves, with the carousel and the water and the Violet.
Again, really pretty, but physically impossible.
A bit silly, but yeah, I think it's there for the aesthetic, just for the aesthetic pleasure of it.
I as well think I agree with Shadow. At the same time, there's so much stuff in this anime that I'm like, this is like some pretty, like Shadow said, some pretty silly stuff. Like the action.
The parachute assault.
Yeah, that's. Oh, well, okay. So let's talk about this. So like, there's this part in the story where basically Violet's like, as soon as I'm done, they drag me back in, and she goes back into war essentially to do her job as an auto memories doll. And this is just probably where the show, to me, it just went off the rails. Like, it's not even like there's good things about these episodes, like fantastic things, but these episodes were not, for me personally, fun to watch because I was like, what this, like we were on like a consistent path here, and then we veer off into, like I think Shadow said, pretty much this action series territory. But I think they're like, I don't know why they did it, because it just, you know, I think there would have been. I don't think they even should have done it, but I just think there also could have been better ways to do it. Um, were you guys as jarred as I was when they got into the war stuff?
I wouldn't say I was jarred. I was kind of expecting it, to be honest, but it was there. It just wasn't as good as the rest of the show, but I wouldn't say it was horrible.
Yeah, not horrible for me. And it's really only 12 and 13 I was jarred by because, again, it randomly turns into an action movie for half of it.
Hmm.
After, most of the show had just been a character study and a drama. And now all of a sudden we're in an action movie where she actually has to, race across a moving train and fight soldiers. Yep.
Uncharted 2.
The violating. God. And if they were gonna go with the whole war, I kind of wish they would have committed to it on a major scale. Like everything just breaks down and the nations all have to go to war again, rather than this random attempt at terrorism sabotage on a moving train.
Yeah.
A little bit like, because that makes me think of the last half of Gossek, the 2011 anime, where war does break out. It's kind of a similar setting, only it's technically real, but they actually do like commit fully to having the world go back to war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Say, is a pretty good thought. Okay, yeah. So there is this part, I think in episode 12, it may be 13, where there was good intentions with what they were doing here, and for they kind of pulled it off in some ways, but I felt everyone around Violet was overselling it so much. Like, okay, what this scene was is they're on the train, Major Gilbert's brother is there. Major Gilbert or Violet's like, "Sir, orders, please." And then Major Gilbert's brother is like, "Take this gun, you dog, you machine. You like taking orders, don't ya? You bitch." And Violet's like, "No, I do not." "Yes, you do. You like taking orders because you're a dog. You're a person who's a dog and takes orders like a soldier would. Violet Evergarden. My brother's dead. Take this gun and defend yourself and kill the people. I bet if I told you to kill someone, you kill someone." She's like, "No, I will not kill someone, sir." And obviously, I'm overblowing his dialogue because I watched the dub and his delivery on it was like not good at all. But
It wasn't much better on the dub or sub.
yeah, it was super hokey, super ham-fisted, super like in your face, like, "Don't you understand what the show is about? See, Violence a machine. Now she's not. She's defying orders." And I like what the idea of it was, but I felt it lacked all of the nuance the series had for 10 episodes. And it was kind of it kind of made me chuckle a little bit because it was so weird and so out of place, and Violet's so deadpan, and Major Gilbert's brother is so mad. I was like, what? Who thought this was a good idea?
I think if they worked with it a bit more, it could have been a really good. But
His delivery could have went a big way, I think.
Yeah.
What do you think, Shadow?
Yeah, it's really over over the top and kind of just really feels like a random genre shift at the end of the show here. And I think that's why those two episodes feel so jarring, because it's also small scale and a little ridiculous, the fact that they're shouting clearly without any consideration for like the wind and the noise of the train and can hear each other perfectly.
Yeah, they go on top
Mhm.
of the train, which once again I feel conflicted about it, but they have this pretty mediocre fight scene in my opinion. And I like the moments, the beats, the story beats in this because it's she's trying her best to subdue the enemies, but as well not kick them off the train or kill them, which I'm pretty sure they're going to be all right if they fall off the train. I mean, they're not going to be all right, but they're not going to die.
Depends.
Yeah. I mean, the train was not going like super fast and they weren't super high off the ground. She could have easily tossed them off the side and they'd probably be okay. So it's they're not going to get dragged by the rails or anything.
Right, and as well, these people are terrorists. So, um, I like how she's trying to do that, and because she's doing that, she's getting injured herself. She gets slashed in the back, and then it just falls apart after that. She
Mhm.
gets ganged up by all these dudes, and they you just by the way, one of the like the weirdest like little moments is she gets like punched squarely in the face and she doesn't budge by like one of them. I think by the main guy.
Not
Uh,
even punched. She gets knocked with a rifle in
yeah,
her face.
yeah, and like her face doesn't even move. She just has like a little scar on her face, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? And like moments earlier before that, before she goes up, she's this guy is basically saying the same thing that Major Gilbert's brother said to her. And it's like, you're a dog. You do things that people tell you to because you're a soldier. You're the same as us. Then again, this when they did it a moment later, it did have that cool part where she grabs the knife and breaks it. So
Uh-huh.
and then knocks the guy out, which I thought was pretty satisfying. But
One bit I okay, carry on. Sorry.
no, you.
Okay, one bit I kinda hoped to see but didn't happen was if there was a sister of a guy she may be killed.
The Last of Us Part 2 route.
Kinda.
Yeah,
But
that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Not for Violet, but for us the viewer it would be. uh and we do kind of get that. We get Major Gilbert's brother, but of course she didn't kill Major Gilbert. But Major Gilbert, there's this great scene. I think we're on the top of the train, by the way. Uh
Hmm.
so maybe not the best setting for it, but he's like he's like he's like I want you to die. I wish you died because you're the one who killed my brother. Because that's what you do. You murder. And it makes that's like a major moment for his character because he finally let it out, the feelings that he's been feeling about Violet. But as well, you know, we finally understand Gilbert because this wasn't even hinted at. Because if we go to a flashback, like in the second or third episode, and we see that even before Gilbert's death, he treats her poorly, and you just think, well, he's just an asshole to be an asshole. That's kind of what he is, though. I mean, he's kind of just an asshole to be an asshole because they don't set this up properly. But
Hmm.
what did you guys think about that?
I think like I can see his reasoning why he hated Violet, but I think they could have run with it a bit more.
Yeah,
Or not hated, but
it just popped up in this episode, and
Mhm.
at a random moment too, because I think it's like immediately after I think it's like immediately after there's still like a fight going on, right? And then that's where she deflects the explosive round from that rifle. Like, what was going on with that? What kind of round was that?
I think it was a grenade launcher.
Oh, okay. It just looked like a normal rifle to me. I guess it was
It
one
had
of those tube rifle grenade launchers.
it had a thing below it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so it's what do you think, Shadow?
Uh, it is. I think he's probably actually one of the more rational characters here. Not more rational, but just his motivations make sense, but you're right. He is just kind of the asshole start to finish, and there's really not much to him beyond because the first time he only regards Violet as a tool anyway, and he's not very sympathetic or remotely kind to her. And once Gilbert is dead, he blames her.
Yeah. I guess to get out of these last episodes, because I think many people have already kind of torn apart these last episodes.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure, but I bet you can find videos on it about Violet's last episodes are not great. There's actually a lot to love about this series, and I actually went into this series kind of expecting to not enjoy it as the first 2 times I watched it, and you know what? I don't think I'm wrong about my criticisms, but in terms of my feelings about it, I think I was wrong. Because I actually ended up rather enjoying it by the end, for kind of like in the same way you enjoy Your Name or something. You watch Your Name, and it's not very realistic. It's not very. It's kind of like it's a movie. It's a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what Violet is to me. Like, watching it for the third time, it is what it is, and you should not criticize it, but it's definitely one of those where you have to watch it for what it is. It's not some this super grand art thing. It's not some higher art. It's not as good as A Silent Voice. And I think the reason I was so harsh on it afterwards is because of what came before it in A Silent Voice. Because I thought A Silent Voice was amazing. And this is just...
I think I had a bit of the same reaction. It's not like I disliked it when I saw it. I was just kind of okay with it. I was just like, yeah, it was good, and it was well made, and I thought it looked nice, but I didn't love the show or anything because of A Silent Voice that came before it.
Yeah, and that's where I come in, because I had 2 years in between them, and it might be one of the better shows I've seen this year so far.
Oh, yeah, in terms of this year, in 2020, this is like one of the best shows I've seen. But there's not a lot of competition. But I actually, I loved a lot of stuff. I think I liked many of the episodes that I used to dislike much more. On this new rewatch, I loved the Iris episode. I thought focusing on Iris is pretty cool. She's kind of random. She doesn't really have much importance afterwards. But I liked her character by the end. I felt, I felt for the position she's in. I think her position is very relatable to many people as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Any episodes that you guys change your mind on or really enjoyed?
Well, I definitely enjoyed Nameless, which was the 7th episode. I think I enjoyed that more this time around, just because I think finally the emotion of that episode hit me a lot harder.
Mm-hmm.
Like episode 10 is a given. I mean, I already remember bawling my little eyes out when I saw that the first time, but I think episode 7 I walked away with a whole new appreciation for it.
I think 7 might be my favorite episode. Yes.
I also liked the first 2 episodes quite a bit. I also like I like anything with Luculia. I thought Luculia was an awesome character, and
yeah, I liked her too.
I would have loved it if she was like an actual secondary character, like how Catalia is. Where she's not showing up all the time, but she's showing up fairly often. And she has some sort of importance to the story and in relation to Violet's character. But yeah, she's just kind of like Violet's friend Luculia. But she had like a really great design. She had a great story.
Yeah, I would have liked more Luculia.
Now thinking about it, I also like the episode with the princess.
Yeah, that was pretty cute too.
Yeah, I also ended up liking that episode much more than I did originally. I think I already liked that episode, but like, yeah, it was just kind of like, the thing I liked about it is her maid or whatever it is. I forget the term, but like basically, she kind of treats
Basically,
her as her mother, and she's like trying to, as well. She's trying to like get this guy that basically like one of the only authentic people that she's ever met in her life to marry her. Um, yeah, I thought the episode was pretty fun.
yeah. What about the opening and the ending?
Well, I skip them every time.
Yeah, honestly, I watched it for the first time and did the same.
I was like, well, that's some anime sounding music right there.
Yeah, I skipped them too, mostly just because I was trying to get through these fairly quickly. But I think I like the opening plenty fine. But I almost feel like the show functions so much better without the standard opening ending.
I as well agree.
I like,
Yeah,
and I liked that they were really willing to stray away from that because
and
anime is always made in these big production committees, which obviously always includes like a top music label, and of course they always want to push forward some new
Four
artist or
chords.
somebody.
mhm.
And and I think KyoAni was pretty courageous to like make the story pacing work in a way where we don't always need to have the standard anime opening. And a lot of the times I almost think it worked fine without it. I feel like you don't need it, or you could have gone strictly instrumental with Evan Call's music.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Evan.
I think like half of the episode didn't even have opening.
Yeah, just about. I feel like only like maybe 4 or 5 episodes use the opening.
Yeah, and I don't think any of almost anything about those songs are really strong as well. Like they're kind of weak. I like the opening's first arpeggiated melody.
Hmm.
I like that, and everything afterwards. I'm like, whatever. It's anime music, or it's anime opening music. But the actual music, like Chow
The
said, by Evan
OST.
Call.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my god, dude, I loved this. This was great. If this is almost just as good as a Silent Voices score, in my opinion.
I honestly don't remember a silent voice score at all.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't remember much in regards to the score for a silent voice, so
The
that's
score for
I'd
a silent
say
voice is basically a box song. Like the whole thing. It's just
yeah,
the box song through the whole 2.5 hours.
yeah, which and I know there's a lot of people who generally appreciate a more minimalist approach to music. I tend to not be one of them, probably because I used to play instrumental music myself a long time ago, but so I still have a fond appreciation for the really meaty scores out there and the really, you know, even if they're heavy-handed, the more melodic soundtracks, for lack of better words.
Hmm.
And and I think that's why I like the music for Violet a lot more. Whereas I can't even tell you, besides like Air, I can't even tell you the music for most KyoAni shows. Well, except Beyond the Boundary. Masumi Ito's scores is pretty good in that too.
And then idol scene.
Yeah, the idol scene.
Um there was a lot of stuff, a lot of techniques used in here. Sounds of a typewriter, brush
Mhm.
strokes, um mechanical sounds, things like that to really make you it really the score really matches the aesthetic of the show really well. And I think the score is probably the best thing about this series. Um and that's I don't think that's surprising to say about a KyoAni anime. Like
Hmm.
like in this era, I think by this time, they treat their scores their scores at this point feel so different. I don't know. They sound much
Yeah,
more authentic sounding.
Uh, s-
I'll never get
just
over how good Air's music was.
We will get to that at some later episodes, but
Yeah.
speaking of sound, I don't know if you guys noticed that or not, but whenever there was Violet in the scene, you could hear her. You could hear her like prosthetic arms clattering around and doing little sounds in the background. I thought that was really cool.
They had that one sound where when they show her hands, it's that same sound effect they play every time. Yeah.
Even if they didn't show her hands directly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
you can always hear the mechanics of her arms going. Really good sound design.
yeah, yeah. Oh God, one of the most haunting sounds in this whole anime is her arms falling off. I'm like,
Yeah.
ugh, I don't want to hear that again.
Oh, yeah. Squeaky.
That's kind of the point, though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you're talking about when she's in combat and her arms kind of get shot off and blown off.
Yeah. As well, when there's that sort of dream sequence. That just reminded me of a really dark part of the show. There's this dream sequence where she goes back to the place where the major died, and there he is, and it's obviously she's like experiencing PTSD really hard at this point, and he's like, what do I? She's like, what do I do? What do I do, Major? And then you just see blood start trickling down, and the sound is so like it's so distinct. I can still hear it, and there's this, and I think what does the Major say in this scene?
He repeats what his brother told Violet earlier.
Was
It's,
it?
How can you
Yeah, it was the
write
hands.
letters to connect people with the hands you killed so many people with?
Yeah, that's what it was.
Something of the sort.
And then she looks down at her hands, and they're all bloodied.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. Anything dealing with PTSD in this anime was fantastic and super like visceral. And I think she wakes up after that and she tries to kill herself. And
Yeah, she tries to strangle herself. That's
and like I forgot about this moment. Like it's like smack dab in the middle of the show, and you forget about it. And I couldn't tell you why you forget about it, because it's one of the most like it's one of the biggest moments in this show. She tries to kill herself and she can't do it.
I
Would you
mean,
guys
to be
think
fair,
about the scene?
there was a window right next to her, but I don't think she really meant it, or it wasn't taught us.
Well, she obviously acted out in the moment because it was very quick. Woke up, knocked stuff on the floor, and then started trying to kill herself. It was very much like I think she was in desperation, trying to figure out what to do, and that she couldn't, because she wasn't getting any orders, she couldn't function properly, because that's how she functions, is getting orders from people to do things. Because she doesn't live her life. She living her life to her is someone telling her what to do. Like her life is a job.
Yep. And I think it's that point that she kind of starts to understand how to live with what she did. Even though you really can't blame her. Like,
yeah, you really can't. Like, there's nothing she could have done. Like, she was put in this situation where she had to do it. And if she didn't know any better, she was just a kid at the time. Well, she's still a kid in the show, but I think there's a great scene at the end of the very first episode. I think they repeat it again, and when they repeat it again, it's like fantastic, because they do like swapping back and forth with her on the battlefield and her in her Auto Memories doll dress. At the end of the first episode, Hodgins is like, "You're on fire right now, but you don't know it yet." And I thought that was so like such a strong line, such a memorable and strong line. And then she repeats it, and I'm like, lost a little bit of gusto there. It wasn't bad, but kind of
did it really though?
I felt it was a little tacky. I'm like, Because she's like, "You're
I
right.
think it was.
I am on fire."
I think it was more like she realized what he said at that point.
Maybe it was the delivery of the dub specifically.
Could be.
But Erica Harlacher is a great voice actor. So I don't know what it was. Maybe the dub script. It was the dub script, maybe. I don't know.
But in the translation, you think?
Mhm.
It's very obvious this dub was produced on cheap, even though they got some pretty good people.
Yeah, they have a lot of good talent in here.
I think maybe I don't know who directed it, but it's
It was
probably
the Buchholz, Bob and Megan Buchholz.
oh, what do they do? What have they done?
A lot of stuff. I don't. Let me check what is Bob Schultz. Great, because I mostly remember. I mostly know Bob Schultz as the director of the old Digimon dub. Yeah,
Oh,
but that was
Jesus.
intentionally like really cheesy and corny for its time. Let's. I'm trying to see what else he's directed. Beastars, Kengan Ashura, Inazuma 11, Visions Better Than Us, Forest at Piano.
He's probably done
Yeah,
Kakegurui as well.
I don't see it here. High Score Girl, Devilman Crybaby. Yeah, he's done a lot of stuff over the years. A lot of
Nothing that I think of the dub for though. I don't know. I mean, it's got Erica Harlacher. She's great. She was
yeah,
fantastic as Violet. Like she nails the voice really well.
yeah. I think everybody was fine in this. Just sometimes the usually if there's problems with the dub, it's usually always kind of came down to just the way certain lines would get delivered more than anybody giving a bad performance. It just always was like some lines were just delivered better than others.
Yeah, it
Well, I think the
really.
voice I didn't like it was Benedict because I don't know, his voice just was like a little too deep for my liking for a character like that.
Yeah, I can see that.
Oh, he was pretty high in the sub.
Yeah, because that just seems to fit him because he seems like a fairly young person, like somebody's barely out of adolescence, or just maybe somebody would have naturally kind of have a higher voice.
I think with a dub, um, there was just. I think you're right, Shadow. But as well, some of these lines, it feels like a director issue to me. It just feels like the director is like, "Yep, good take, whatever. Let's move on."
Yeah.
Because
Which is I think you're exactly right on that. That's where I'm kind of getting at with like overall the performances were fine. It's just it tended to be certain lines would be delivered really kind of weirdly or flatly. Like I think of episode 10, and I think so I could recognize the mother, that was Wendy Lee, and I'm
oh
like,
yeah,
Wendy's a
she's
very
so
solid
flat.
actress. There most of the time she was fine. There'd just be times where she'd like, you could have delivered that line a whole lot better. Like
Yeah, I'm often where the daughter. By the way, the daughter voice perfectly normal, perfectly fine. She's pretty good. She
yeah.
has great emotional performance. The scene where she breaks down and cries is great, but like when I think she's like tie a ribbon or no wait she says tie a ribbon hair to Violet or something. It's
Yeah.
when she's in her bed and she's talking to her daughter. She says something like, "Do you want to play?" or something like that. Or no, she's like, "Can I sleep with you in your bed?" And then she's like, "No, darling. I
Yeah.
thought you were too old to sleep in my bed." I'm like, "What is going on here?" And
Yeah.
there's another line. So it's one of the flashback sequences where they bring Violet back to Gilbert's home, and she bites one of the maids, and you hear one of the maids go, "Ow!"
Yeah, just kind of this flat ow. Like like somebody getting a paper cut more than getting bitten.
Like so uninterested in being bitten right now. But they have to like they have to react. Like they're like, ah, "Damn it, I got bit again." Ow! Like it's that kind of thing. It's some of the lines just don't. They're not well delivered, and they should have been delivered way better. No reason for them not to.
Yeah, really. Other than just, and I get it. Sometimes like translation and lip flaps can kind of inhibit that, but I don't know. But yeah, you're totally right. Just sometimes the deliveries would be like a little flat at times.
And completely
It always
wrong.
depended on the line. Again, I think overall the performances were fine. Just
Yeah.
sometimes certain lines just needed to be done with a different take.
A completely different take for some of them, because sometimes a character would be yelling and they'd be like speaking like in a normal tone. Like, what's going on here? Like the mouth is screaming, but the voice is like, I'm so angry.
And here you have reasons why I watched the original.
I mean, it ain't bad. It ain't a bad dub, but
Yeah.
it's one of those things where you notice it for sure. But it's a good dub. It's a good dub. Erica Harlacher, A+.
That's
Fantastic.
still like one of the things that really surprises me, because you have a really high production show, but it seems like the Netflix take on it was really cheap on the Western side.
Yeah, that's usually what Netflix does, is they cheap out on the dubs. There's some dubs that are really great they've produced, like really, really good dubs. Like the Kakegurui dub is pretty amazing. Also has Erica Harlacher in it, much of the same cast as Violet Evergarden. And they're like screaming to the top of their lungs and performing really well. And it's just too flat sometimes. Way too flat. What else? Jesus, what else is there to talk about? Have we covered everything? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I think we have talked about everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and there's the episode with the observatory. You want to talk about that?
Oh, we could talk about. I think it's a very. I think
Forgettable
that one
episode.
is my favorite visually, just because how pretty the stars look in that.
So,
Oh yeah.
so the episode where Violet goes to the observatory, what did you guys think about that? To me, that was a pretty forgettable episode in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
It was really pretty. I think that's one of the things KyoAni tried here, and they kind of backpedaled on it, or like issues with class segregation, with how do you say it in English?
What are you getting at?
Discrimination, that kind of stuff. I think they tried a couple
bullying?
times to push it forward, but then kind of gave up on it, or didn't push it far enough for me.
Well, the main guy, in this episode, yeah, people were like bullying, basically putting him down, saying like all these things about him, basically of his class. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, and by the end, he's like telling Violet he'll try as best he can. And yeah, the episode was forgettable to me because it didn't have much significance in Violet's personal journey to me. It had more significance to this character that was introduced,
Mm-hmm.
and into the world building a little bit. But like I don't did Violet learn anything from this? Like, what was the lesson from this?
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think it really did much for her character. As much as again it was just there as kind of a world builder.
And I think in that sense, really great stuff. I mean, this episode immediately, when I watched this episode, every time I watch it, like I immediately think back the first time I watched it, where I was like, are they really gonna do a romance in Violet Evergarden? Because that's what this episode made me think. Because you had all of these auto memory stalls coming up from different companies, and
Mm-hmm.
they're paired with these dudes, and these like basically every single one of these dudes are like, we are lonely monks living in the mountains. So any woman they see, they're like, yeah, let's smash. And it's not exactly that, but Um, it was just a weird episode. It's just really weird, really strange. And I guess in that sense, since the story is about her finding out what the emotions of love means, what would you think if there was actually a romance developed between Violet and someone? Because it better be Laculia. Yuri, it needs to be Yuri Evergarden.
I don't know. I don't think about. I don't. If there was like a second series, perhaps I think you could explore that a little more, but not for the first series because the whole first series is Violet's journey of discovery
Mhm.
of emotion and of course of love. So how would she fall in love, or how would anybody really fall in love with her?
And that's why I asked the question. How could she? Exactly. I think that's what makes it interesting. Is
Mhm.
how would she deal with something like that? Someone who doesn't understand her own emotions, and by the end understands them a lot more, but still has a long way to go. Like,
I
how would
think
that work out with her?
I think one of the things you could do with this concept, or with the theoretical second season, would be say like 10-year jump to future.
They could.
Play around with much older Violet.
Yeah, she'd be like, so 10 years in the future, she'd be like
25,
25,
24.
26. Yeah, she's like also really young.
She's
Like,
14.
yeah,
14.
she's like a kid, and she doesn't look it one bit.
Yeah, I would have figured she'd be like 17 or something at least.
I thought she'd
No,
be in
I
her
believe at the start, at like the first episode, she's 14.
Yeah, you're probably right.
By the
Yeah,
end of the show, 15, maybe 16.
yeah, she's extremely young. Um. Oh, as well,
I
what do you
think
guys think about the episodic nature of the show?
I think that's what lends to its strength, really, as
Yeah.
a because it's always how does Violet interact with her world, and how do people
I
interact
think
with her?
the story such as Violet's wouldn't really work if it was, say, a month. There's some topics she deals with that just don't take that short of a time to deal with.
Would you guys be up for season 2?
Yes.
Yes.
I think I would as well. I think I'd want to continue Violet's journey. And wish we will on the next episode of the podcast. We talk about the special, which hopefully has some Yuri in it.
It seems to be very implied there's
Yeah.
some Yuri in it.
Just take for quick information. The special is what, 35 minutes?
I
I think it's
guess.
a little longer than that. I think it's like 90 minutes.
And then we'll eventually do the movie later on.
Yeah, 90 minutes.
There's two of them. There's
Oh, yeah.
an there's
Well, there's
an
like
episode 14 kind of thing. That's 35, and then there's the hour and a half movie thing.
Go. There you go. So if you have any places where they can find you guys, where can they find you guys?
I'm on YouTube, and my channel name is Shadow Blizzard 3000.
I am on C server, which starts coming back to life again.
Yeah, and the only way to get an invite is for you to be on the lookout. Literally. Because, like, I ain't making it public straight up. I'm inviting people in slowly, okay? How we're doing it this time. If I continue to do it. As well, subscribe to Bento. Help get this channel 1K. And if it's already at 1K, help it get it to 1 million subs. So subscribe.
Yeah.
And subscribe to all these people. Subscribe to Shadow. Get him to 1K. Get him to 1 million subs. He's great. He's amazing. Subscribe to Malice's channel. He makes the greatest content about tanks. So, see you guys on the next episode. Bye bye.
See ya.
All right.